right, everyone. I'm being joined right now by the writer and director for the film The Bikeriders, Jeff Nichols. Jeff, I've been wanting to talk to you for so long. Huge fan of all your films. I was telling your publicist before, I don't think you've ever made a bad film. So this is quite a thrill for me to be speaking with you, sir.
Thank you. I'm flattered by you saying that.
Yeah, so I saw The Bikeriders back at its world premiere at the Telluride Film Festival, which feels like it was eons ago at this
Well,
point. It's been your largest gap between projects since the release of Loving, and
yeah.
it experienced obviously certain delays given everything that was happening in Hollywood and then passing on to another studio. Can you just tell me, as you get to the end here and this film is about to finally be released in theaters, just looking back on the process of its life, if you will, like how are you feeling now that you're getting closer to the end?
I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic. Um, Focus is going all out. You know, I've
Yeah.
been I've been to LA before. On press tours promoting the film, but I've never driven around and seen all these billboards of my own film. All these ads showing up on TV. I'm getting texts from people all over the country saying, "Hey, I just saw the trailer. I just did this." That's never happened to me before, and
Yeah.
so I'm appreciative that we're with a company that is that's going all out for us. I think they feel like they have a film that could connect with people, so they're trying as hard as they can to make that connection. Um,
Mhm.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm nervous. You could look at a film released like Midnight Special, which I feel
Mhm.
like Warner Brothers just really did not appropriately release that film.
Mhm.
They just left it in New York and LA for like a month. And
I
I was getting
remember.
calls from people who were like, "Hey, we're seeing the trailer. How do we see the film?" And I was like, "I don't know. Call Warner Brothers." But I don't have that in this case. We've got real support. We've got incredible actors.
Yeah.
Uh, it feels like a moment. I just, I don't know. It's a strange time. I hope people show up and watch it.
Yeah. So as I looked at your previous films, the budget on Bike Riders is about four, maybe five times what the previous highest budget you ever worked with before was. Was that a noticeable difference for you during production, or did it just feel like a very seamless, gradual, like sort of evolution for you working on that scale?
Well, we had about, Midnight Special was about 25.
Oh, it
Uh,
was. I thought it was a little less than that. My apologies.
it's always budgets are always strange because are you talking net numbers or gross numbers? I think
Sure.
20 net, something like that. This was about 30 net. So um, certainly bigger.
Hmm.
But it's funny how that money gets used. The film sets don't feel very different, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, as a matter of fact, I had 45 days to shoot Loving, uh, and I was only given 39 days for this film.
Wow.
Loving, was a $10 million film.
Hmm.
So it doesn't always, more money doesn't always directly translate to a more luxurious production. Usually, sometimes the opposite. There were just these days where you really felt it. You show up and there are 150 extras, all in period clothing with cars and bikes rolling around, and you're like, "Holy cow! This is a movie. This is a big movie." But then there are other days where it feels like every other movie I made, where you're in a location and you got two great actors, and you know you got all your friends there helping you make this movie. It's actually that part feels quite comfortable at this point for me.
Speaking of friends, Michael Shannon has found a way into each one of your films. How does it work out at this point? Do you write a role specifically for him? Does he clear his schedule for you? Do you clear your schedule for him?
Maybe it's a little bit of both. I mean, Mike's real generous with me, because he does move things around for me, and
Mhm.
uh, and I owe my career to Michael Shannon. I
Yeah.
genuinely do. Not just the fact that he showed up, but the way that I direct has been affected by directing Michael Shannon. I learned how to direct from directing Michael Shannon. So, I owe this guy a lot. It's really tricky for me. Anytime I pick up a book or a magazine or have an idea for a movie, I always think of Michael Shannon. And I have to kind of distance myself sometimes. It's like, no, we can have other actors. Yeah, I would literally be like, John Malkovich. I would have him, play every role if I could.
Sure.
That's how much I love the guy. So yeah, it is a really important thing. It was a really important thing to this film because up front in the first week of filming, we shot both of Mike Shannon's big monologues. And so you have this incredible cast of actors, some incredibly famous people sitting around, and they get to watch Mike and I work in the first week
Yeah.
and record these monologues. And it established a working relationship with the entire group. It also established a bar of, okay, this is what we want to do. Austin was telling me on the first day of filming, we did Mike Shannon's monologue about Pinkos. And so he's sitting on his bike, saying this monologue a few times. And I think it was the third take. And Austin said, Tom leaned over to him. He's like, oh, he's in it now. Like we could all feel Mike Shannon, turn it on. And it really did. It set the tone for the whole movie.
Anytime Tom Hardy especially gets cast in a film, we're always left wondering what kind of a voice is he going to bring to the character that he plays next.
Sure.
And I'm curious to know, did he just one day show up on set with that voice? Did you two work on it together? How did he find that character?
It was a little bit of both.
Mhm.
That first day on set was the first time I heard anything. But we had conversations about it. So I kind of knew, at least I should say, I was kind of let in on his process. And I thought it was really, really pretty shrewd, really pretty smart. Um, I can't do Tom's British accent, but he'd always say, you can't be half a gangster. And that's what this guy is trying to do. And
Mm,
that's his mistake.
yeah.
He's like, I think this guy grew up watching James Cagney films. I think this guy, obviously in the film, he's watching Marlon Brando. And I think he's playing the part of a motorcycle gang leader. I don't think he really is. And it's true. He's got a house in the suburbs and a wife and two kids. So what Tom ended up doing was building this affectation, this voice that had hints of James Cagney and had hints of Marlon Brando. Definitely lives in the higher register. And as soon as it came out, all of those dominoes of all those conversations we'd had about the way he was building it, they all fell. And I knew exactly what he was doing. I thought it was freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
It certainly takes a second to get used to. And it's the danger of the way movies are released because you have to release these trailers first. So people are just getting snippets and they don't really see the context of the whole thing.
Yeah.
When you put it all together, I thought it was quite astute, a really smart choice.
Yeah. At the time, if I remember correctly, I think Austin had just wrapped on Elvis to go work on Bikeriders, or was it
Yeah.
Dune?
He
It
just
was
wrapped up.
Dune. Right.
And
So you knew you had this pretty like this well, he'd already become a star with Elvis. So you knew you lucked out pretty heavily, I'm sure, with having him in that key spot. But I think the real glue of this movie is Jodie Comer. I mean, she is the voice of this movie that takes us through this entire story. Can you tell me just a little bit about her chameleon-like ability to just completely lose herself in any role that she plays? Because I'm just fascinated by the depths of her talent.
she's one of the best I've ever worked with. And
Right? Yeah, I could imagine.
Jodie's a worker. Jodie's a worker. I'm not sure if it's because she had done so much TV work, which has to be I'm told really fast, really rapid. So many accents that she had dealt with in Killing Eve, but the truth is she does the work.
Yeah,
Um, we gave her about 30 minutes to an hour worth of audio of this real woman's voice, and Jodie, who has a lot of lines in this movie, phonetically broke down every single word she said. She built that voice, out of this real world example, and that work is impressive. But the thing I find most impressive is that when she puts it all together into a performance, it just disappears. You don't see the
mm,
lines, you don't see the seams. Um, it's like kind of the greatest magic trick ever happening right in front of you. Mike
yeah,
Feist, who grew up in Ohio, who's sitting across from her, through a lot of the movie, he turned to me after one take and he was like, "Dude, I just felt like I was sitting in my grandmother's kitchen in Columbus, Ohio. She smoked cigarettes and she spoke with that same accent. And here this is this young, beautiful British woman, showing up and completely inhabiting this Midwestern lady from the 1960s. It was very impressive to watch.
And going back to Austin, I imagine that's him doing his own writing. Is he also doing like his own stunts in this film as well? Like, because his performance to me is so physical, not just in these moments that I'm talking about, but also just in the way he carries himself. There's like a real James Dean like quality to like his swagger and on screen presence in this film that I really, really was so captivated by. I just want to know, like, first of all, how much of it did he get physically involved in, and secondly, what was it just like for you working with him? Because I know that he's still relatively young in his career. Well, not really. I mean, he did do stuff when he was younger, but he's in this new phase now of his
Yeah.
career.
You know, um, I was really discovering a lot about Austin as
Mhm.
we were in this film. Uh, yes, to your first question, physically, I mean, he was doing almost everything. There were a couple of riding shots where we had Jeff Milburn, who was the guy that was our motorcycle guru, kind of was teaching up the ropes on these old bikes. There's this one really particular shot where his bike just narrowly passes between these two cars.
Yeah.
That's Milburn. But the rest of it, the image doesn't lie. There's no CG. That's Austin Butler riding that big old bike,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and uh, and you really can't take your eyes off of him. And he trained. He worked hard because those bikes are not easy to ride. Or start for that matter. They're all kickstart bikes. Um, but as a character, I built I built this character to be a bit of a myth. Um,
Mhm.
when you look at the book, The Bike Riders, there's several photographs of Benny, but you never see his face. And he's never directly interviewed in the book. So you just hear people talking about it, mostly Kathy. And so already he feels kind of iconic coming out of the book. And I thought about that on the page. I really wanted to give this character these moments where I call them movie moments, but they, they feel like iconic moments from a film. This guy sitting outside Kathy's house, pretty much just waiting until her boyfriend gives up and leaves so that he can ask her out. The knife fight in the beginning, throwing himself into the middle of that fist fight in that one rumble, um, you know, punching his hand through a glass window and pulling a piece of glass out of it. There are all these kind of almost mythological, behaviors that this character has. And I needed an actor that could hold the weight of that.
Yeah.
I needed an actor that could also hold the weight of the love that's going to come off of Kathy and going to come off of Johnny, played by Tom. You needed an actor that immediately you look at and you understand, oh, that's why they're in love.
Mhm.
Um, and that's Austin. It's a undeniable, but it's also kind of intangible quality. It's not just about the way you look. There are a lot of good-looking people in the world that aren't movie stars,
Right.
uh, and and Austin is built with a lot of complexity. The more you get to know that guy, he's a wonderful human being, but there's some stuff going on in there. I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of the performances that this guy's going to deliver. You're really watching the birth of a movie star.
I think so as well. Absolutely. My final question to you: uh, your films take place predominantly in rural areas, dealing with the moral complexities of these characters. And I never want you to stop doing that. I think you do such a fantastic job in each one of your films of exploring these characters and these environments as well. But can you tell me just a little bit about how you feel you have evolved from Shotgun Stories up until now with the Bike Riders in exploring these similar themes and settings?
I mean, I have more control as a director,
Mhm.
which also means as a writer, because the directing comes out of the writing, and it's one reason that it took me so long to write the Bike Riders.
Yeah.
Is quite frankly, I just didn't have the chops. Um, if you look at my earlier films, there was a temperance that I applied to them. I think especially in this day and age, it's really easy for filmmakers to move the camera around and have it flying around and doing all this crazy stuff, put music in things, and make these really kinetic films. Uh, that wasn't my answer. You know, getting started, I wanted things to be still. I wanted things to be controlled. I wanted them to have a kind of classic structure feel to them. Um, as I've developed as a filmmaker, as a writer and a director, um, I feel like I have more fluidity because I've mastered these kind of skills. Um, that really started around Midnight Special, where I said, okay, actually, I have all these different tools for cinema language that I can use in one film, as opposed to, I can look back and Shotgun Stories is a very static film. It almost plays like a Jarmusch film, or
Mhm.
say early John Ford film, where you have these very static frames with characters moving in and out of. Take Shelter was just about very slow dolly shots. That's about the movement that I was going to do in that film. Mud is all about steady cam. It's all about the
Yeah.
flow feel of steady cam. When you get around to Midnight Special, we're dealing with something else. The camera starts to move a lot more fluidly. One, I have more time. I have more resources. I actually have time to, appropriately construct a scene through shots, hinged fluid masters and other things. And, then by the time I get to Loving, I felt like I knew exactly what I was doing as a director in relation to the story that I was telling. And Bikeriders feels like a culmination of all of that. You just keep adding these tools to your toolkit. And now I'm ready to build a house.
Well, my plea to not just to you, but the powers that be that might be listening, for the love of God, no more 7-year gaps. I need another Jeff Nichols film on a regular schedule of every 2-3 years again.
Yeah.
Because you provide us with so many memorable characters and stories, and your work, I think, is immaculate. I can't thank you enough for your time here, Jeff, and congratulations on the Bikeriders. I'm sure anybody who appreciates this era or motorcycles in general or your work will definitely find value in this.
Thanks, Michael. I'm flattered.
Take care.